Hello again, everyone. This is Abra, and I'm back to give my 2 cents on the Netflix movie The Gray Man. As some of you may have found, Netflix movies or streaming service movies in general can be fairly hit or miss. What caught my eye was that The Gray Man was directed by the Russo brothers. They're the same directors that are responsible for making the Avengers movie and Captain America Civil War. When I saw the trailers for The Gray Man, I thought, wow, this looks like it's going to be an action-packed movie. I just wanted to go in and see some great action, great stunts, see some things blow up, and kind of turn my mind off for a bit. The Gray Man is based on the novel by author Mark Greaney, and he does kind of like these spy thriller kind of books. I haven't read any of them, but they kind of seem like a Tom Clancy-ish kind of thing, shadow government and intrigue and world at peril kind of thing. Netflix had about a $200 million budget for this film, which is crazy, especially for a streaming film. And, they have some pretty big names in there, so I'm sure a lot of that budget, went to pay for the big name actors' salaries. Apparently, this movie was in some sort of development hell for almost a decade. And the script was shopped around Hollywood since about 2010. The Russo brothers initially expressed interest in making the film, but when things kind of fell through, they went on to do other things, and those other things being the Avengers movies. And that was probably a good thing for them, because I'm sure they learned a lot making those films that they brought over to The Gray Man. One interesting thing about the development of The Gray Man was I read that Brad Pitt and Charlize Theron were initially rumored to be part of the cast, and it's kind of interesting to wonder what that film would have felt like, how it would have been different. The basic premise of The Gray Man, the main character is played by Ryan Gosling. He's a CIA special agent operative with the codename Six, and he has a very deadly skill set. Six was originally recruited from prison. He was given the option: you can work for us doing special missions, or you can just rot in jail. So with the hope of getting out of prison and hopefully one day finding his freedom, the younger Six, he decided to go ahead and sign on with the Sierra program. Ryan Gosling's character is kind of like a James Bond or Jason Bourne kind of character, but he's different from James Bond or Jason Bourne because he's not really, he's not out for revenge. He's not doing it out of feelings for duty for the country. He's doing it because he's hoping at one point he can earn his freedom. That's all he wants, is to someday be free. When the story begins, Six is tasked with taking out a target, and during the mission, it kind of goes sideways. He doesn't want to take the kill shot. He's set up, he's ready to kill his target, but then some people get in the way, and he didn't want any collateral damage. So right there, it shows that Six has some sort of moral code, and he doesn't want to hurt an innocent bystander. A chase ensues. He has to hunt down his target. They have this pretty interesting fight in an area where fireworks are being, the mortars are being shot out of the little cannons. And so that made for a kind of creative fight scene. Six ends up discovering, as his target is gravely wounded and is slowly dying, that the target is another agent similar to himself. That agent's name was Agent 4. And the agent tells him that he's uncovered something really sinister within the CIA, that there's some dark shadow government stuff going on. And he hands Six sort of like a thumb drive that has the evidence on there. Obviously, this rattles Six. He's not sure, what to believe. He accepts the information, and he ends up sending it off to an old friend of his before the agency finds out that he knows the secrets. And once they do find out that he knows the CIA director, Agent Carmichael, he's the one that's involved in this shadow government operations plot, he sends everything he has after Agent Six because he cannot by any means allow this information to become public. What he ends up doing is calling on one of his friends that he went to Harvard with back in the day. He ends up sending a very psychotic man named Lloyd Hansen, played by Chris Evans, to retrieve the chip and to exterminate Six. This is a really desperate move for Carmichael because Lloyd is he's bat guano crazy. Lloyd is the type of guy that would just delight in clubbing to death baby seals. anything to Lloyd is fair game. He is the complete opposite from Six. He doesn't care about collateral damage. In fact, he kind of finds it amusing. One thing that I liked about Ryan Gosling's character of Six was that he was not weighed down with any emotional baggage. That was a breath of fresh air. It's a little bit of a change from James Bond over the last several movies. So that had been a real drag. The audience doesn't feel like they're intruding on someone's personal midlife crisis or anything like that. Another character I liked was Ana de Armas's character, Agent Danny Miranda. 2 first names. Is she a NASCAR racer? They made her character tough without having to make Gosling's character seem weak or ineffective. There was one scene where Gosling kind of made the comment that he was embarrassed, because he had to constantly be rescued by her.
You hurt?
I mean, my ego's a little bruised.
But he was really put through the ringer by the time that he said that. So I felt like he held his own pretty well, and she was just kind of able to keep up with the ride. One thing that did kind of irk me, but this is going to be a problem with pretty much every action movie, is Gosling's character and Ana de Armas's character. I mean, they get the living crap beat out of them. And if anyone in real life experienced just one of the hits to the face that these characters experience, I mean, they would be finished. But of course, you kind of have to put reality in the back seat when you're watching a lot of these action movies. But that was just kind of one of the things, after a while you're like, come on. So the movie is just over 2 hours, and I mean just over. It's almost constant action. I was okay with that. But you do need to be ready for that going in. If you're looking for, as I mentioned earlier, that kind of spy intrigue storyline that you might find in the Jason Bourne movies, you're not going to find that here. This movie is pretty much just a pure action movie. One thing I did notice, despite having a huge budget, there were a couple scenes where the CGI did seem rough. One is when they're in Berlin, and at the very end of the action, this building essentially gets demolished with a car and train and everything crashing through it. And as everything's crumbling, what was supposed to be the debris of the building, it seemed very kind of rough or pixely looking. In the end, I guess it did come down to time and money. Looking at the extent of some of those action scenes and how long they were, I could see how quickly they could blow through $200 million. But it's still quite impressive. And another thing that I really appreciated was, thank God they didn't just rely on the shaky camera and the dark scenes, cheap method of getting around the editing. That drives me crazy to no end. But yeah, they didn't do that, and I didn't feel like I was robbed. So that kudos to them for that. The Russos did some very creative filming with drones. They used them in a more dynamic way than I think has been used in film before. They didn't just use the drones to capture simple aerial shots. They would use the drones and kind of come down and sweep past the action and then turn around and kind of weave in and out of people. I found it very interesting, but I like the whole aspect of making films, but I love very creative camera angles where it makes it unique. This impressed me. So is The Gray Man a good movie? All in all, I would say it's pretty cliche. It's nothing that we haven't really seen before. It's just kind of what you would typically find in a summer blockbuster where you get a big tub of popcorn and a giant soda, and you just turn your brain off for about 2 hours and just watch things blow up on screen. If that's not your jam, I totally understand. This is probably not the movie for you, but if you just want to have a good time and not think too seriously for 2 hours, then this is definitely something you might want to look into. So that's about it. Those are my thoughts on the movie. I'd give it probably about a 6 or 7 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. This is Abra. Till next time, take care.